I'm going to show you now how to create one of your hybrid shapes in cutout black paper. So for this purpose, I've taken one of my exercise sheets that has all of my new hybrid square type shapes on it, and I've chosen the one that I think is the most interesting right now, and that's this one right here. And I'm going to place a piece of tracing paper over it. You could also use a regular piece of white paper. You put that right over it like that where you could see it through. Either way, you're going to make a tracing, and I think it's a good idea to anchor down your pieces of paper with a little bit of masking tape or drafting tape or scotch tape, even if you don't have one of those. So I'm just going to tape this down real quick, and I'm going to use a ruler to carefully trace out this shape. Okay, so I'm going to really make it perfect, because your cutout black paper rendering of the shape is not going to be any more perfect than the drawing that you create or the tracing template that you create right here. So you want to straighten up all these edges, and this is your opportunity to make them really perfect so that when you render it in the black paper, it is in fact really, really superbly crafted and accurate. I'm going to take these curves freehand and carefully render them in pencil, and again here in pencil. Okay, so now I have my tracing, and again, this could be on tracing paper like mine is, or it could actually be on the plain white notebook paper. Okay, so I've got this tracing here. I'm going to turn it over, and on the back I'm going to put some white chalk. I'm putting white chalk on this one because I'm transferring this onto the black paper, and if I were to do this in graphite, the color wouldn't contrast enough with the black paper, and I wouldn't be able to see what I was needing to cut out. So I coat the back of my design with just regular old chalkboard chalk, something light in color, just like that. So I've got the back of it coated in chalk. The front is my pencil rendering, and I'm going to take my piece of black paper again, and I'm going to put this down on it and use that same little piece of tape to anchor it down onto the black paper, and I'm going to use a ruler to then carefully make my transfer. So I've got the chalk side down, and I'm creating my transfer by going over the right side and pressing down relatively firmly so that I can get a good transfer of white chalk on my piece of paper. Get on this side carefully, pushing hard but not too hard so that I get a nice transfer. If you want to, during this process, you can check to make sure that your marks are transferring by simply lifting up your piece of paper, and you can see the faint outline of the chalk on there. And then when it's time for the curved areas, you're going to carefully freehand them on, holding the tracing paper in place and carefully drawing them on, just like this, following your previous pencil lines on the tracing paper, carefully, just like that. And then you can remove the tracing paper, right? And you've got this little chalky outline then showing you just where you're going to need to cut on your paper. So you can see that there. So the first thing I'm going to do then is the easy part, which is simply cutting out the square with scissors according to my chalk line. Now don't worry about any chalk that gets all over the paper, because it comes off really, really easily with an eraser when you get all done with it. But in any case, you don't have to worry about that. You don't want to smudge it off quite yet, because then you obviously wouldn't be able to see what you were supposed to be cutting out. So I'm cutting this out really, really carefully with scissors so that I have this square shape first of all. So I've got that out. And now with the X-Acto knife, I'm going to cut out the curvy shapes. So I've got my sharp X-Acto knife, and I've got my cardboard cutting surface, and I'm just going to start using this like a pen, cutting out really smoothly and carefully and slowly my curvy line of my new hybrid shape that I'm going to render in terms of this black paper. So I'm cutting this out all the way really carefully, making sure I save all these pieces. So there's one piece, here's another piece. You can see I'm moving the paper, holding it steady, curving the paper, and moving the knife when I'm cutting a curved spot. Again here, holding it firmly, using a very sharp knife on a giving surface like cardboard or an old magazine or even one of those self-healing cutting boards. So I've got my shape cut out. So there's my new lovely shape, right? Now I've got to glue it down to this index card. This is going to be my picture plane. So now I get to arrange these things. I get to arrange the positive shape on the index card, like this index card is my little picture plane, and I can include, if I like, the negative shapes too, to create an interesting overall design using my shape on this index card. So I could do something like this. It's okay if they come off the edge. You're just going to use these shapes to sort of recreate an interesting design. You can use any or all of the negative shapes with the positive shape, or you don't have to use them at all if you think it's interesting enough. I think this is a pretty interesting design here, so I'm going to go ahead and glue it down. I like to use glue stick for this, but rubber cement would work just as well. So I have my glue stick here, and I'm going to apply some glue to the back of my pieces of paper carefully. I'm using a sheet down here so that I don't have a gluey mess on my hands whenever I get done applying glue to the back of these pieces. I'm just going to take each one, apply the glue carefully, particularly in the little narrow areas like these areas right here. I want to make sure that I have sufficient glue there so that they glue down nicely. Okay, so I've got them all glued up here, and now I'm ready to reposition them the way I want to on the index card, on my little picture plane. So I'm going to lift this off carefully, and I'm going to put it right here, and I had it touching corner to corner, so I've got that right there. And you can use this as an opportunity to wipe off any extra glue you have. And then I have this piece that's going to go right here, and it kind of comes off the end here, which is fine. I'll cut it off in a minute. And I'm just kind of tacking them down. I'm not really pressing on them or, really manhandling them at all, and I'll show you why. I'm going to put this down here. Now, your project for this Unit 3 is going to be using cut-out black paper as well, and you're going to have to glue it down. This is the way to press it down onto whatever surface it is you're gluing. Instead of pushing it with your hand, you're going to put a clean piece of paper on top of it, and using that as a barrier, you're going to do some heavy rubbing to get all those little areas down on your surface, in this case an index card. So you're just burnishing it with your fingers. You could do it with a marker too if you wanted to. I find fingers are just fine. And then when you've got it all down there perfectly, you're going to take off your cover sheet, and you can clean up any little bits of glue and chalk and such that are on here with your eraser. Get all those off, and any little pieces that are sticking off the ends of the index card you can trim off just like that. Very nice. And when you're done with that, you're going to take your design and you're going to go ahead and glue it to a new sheet of paper. So I'm going to put this here just like this. Again, I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to carefully apply glue to the back of this, just like this, picking up any extra gobs of glue that come off, turn it over, position it on a sheet of paper, and again with a blank sheet of paper you're going to burnish it down This keeps it from ripping or tearing. It keeps you from getting your hand oils on it, and you can rub really hard without hurting any little tender pieces. This is a very good way to glue things down, to glue paper to paper, so that it gets bonded to the surface that you're gluing it to really, really well. So when you're done with that, you're going to remove this piece of paper, and then very carefully with your black marker, you're going to reestablish the edges of the picture plane, just so you can remember exactly how you designed this, and so that when you scan it and send it to me, I can see exactly what you were thinking of with the positive and negative space as you designed this. So I'm just carefully outlining that index card on here, just like so. And there is your hybrid shape rendered in cut black paper.